making a video. Mostly because I felt like it. Yeah. So anyway, Half a Day and Anaconda. They're just going on and on about this inability to cognize this idea of bad. Just, it's too vague, it's mushy, it's not a coherent, concise, hard concept at all. It's some sort of mushy concept. Um, and and the words. We are stuck with the language. I'm quite certain myself, as an opinion, that bad was used the first time to describe somebody who got eaten by a bear, half eaten by a bear, right? Getting eaten isn't so bad. Getting half eaten, well, that's bad. Bad, right? And that's what somebody's. Oh shit, that's bad. You know, their their cave had a cave in. Oh, that's bad because they know they're going to suffocate, or they're going to have to climb their way out through all the rocks or something. Bad things happen. Things that cause people distress and unhappiness. Their arm gets ripped off. Hey, that's bad. Your arm's gone. We know this shit. Blood's pouring out of somebody. That's bad. That's bad. Okay? Not complicated. But this idea that words, identifiers, we come up with a word to describe a category or a property, a concept, and the words are perfectly adequate, but none of them are self-referencing in a sense. None of them are that's the word I'm looking for. I mean, you can't expect them to be defined by something because it's written on the holy rock. That would be religion then, because the universe says so. It's not going to be that. It has to be a way we compare apples to oranges. We literally do that. We compare them to lemons. We compare things to things and say it's sweet like, or it's sour like, or it's crunchy like. And that's perfectly rational, and it's perfectly coherent to reality. That's how reality is. Things have common properties. Paper things, plastic things, they're common. Now the trick is that feelings aren't like anything else. There's no oranges, there's no lemons, there's only one thing, feelings. And there's nothing to compare them to. There's nothing like them, as far as we know, anywhere in the universe. This sensation of consciousness and the capacity to have those negative, hostile, malignant, aggressively deficient might even be a good word, deficient sensations, inefficient, insufficient. And we clearly trade those for positives. We clearly can understand, alright, maybe I wouldn't have 5 hours of a headache for a cupcake, but maybe I would for a yummy apple. I'll make trades for this much not good, bad, for this much of this stuff that I consider good, which is some kind of comfort, some sort of relief. So that's where this gets all gnarly. His Anaconda doesn't even want to play by those rules at all. He says there's an existential suffering and an existential joy. That somehow, he actually said that some kind of depression would be worse than having a nail in your eye. Bullshit. I think I've been as hard depressed as you can get. I mean, just comatose depressed. And yeah, it's bad, but yeah, nail in the eye is it's just going to be more consuming as a badness. It's going to be more hysterically bad. I mean, it's going to be, You won't even have the luxury of being, at least when you're depressed, you can have thoughts of worry and doom. You got a nail in your eye, you're just going to have thoughts of nail in my eye. I gotta keep this lit. So I don't buy this whole argument that there's some extra. Anaconda almost claiming, it's better than any drug, maybe. That's his argument. He's on the super drug of existential joy, existential love of life, blah, 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 blah. I'm arguing no. They're not in the toolkit. You can pretend it is, He's so in love with his Buddha people. He thinks the Buddha guys are all in some sort of bliss. Bullshit. No proof of that. Because they have a smile on their face, and that's what he's going by. Oh, there's a smile on somebody's face, therefore they're having a good time. No. It's almost like laughing. Some people do it. You can see, you know people, right, in your own life. There's some people that just do that. They laugh at everything, every single thing anybody's. They're laughing. I don't think they're necessarily happy people. They just do this behavior. This laughing thing. And I could do that. I could do my and it does make you feel a little better, I suppose. But it's not, you can't do any thinking while you're it is kind of distracting to your brain function. So I think it does go with the bliss is for idiots, because if you have a brain, you're going to recognize that we're walking on railroad tracks, and we got to always be listening for the train to coming. It's just such a crock of shit. So anyway, but anyways, so now they're just playing word games, and now they're just declaring it unacceptable. Both Hothla Day and Anaconda are saying it's unacceptable for us to use descriptions of emotions or descriptions of certain particular kinds of pains or torments as a description of bad in general. As if we're supposed to come up with some other way to describe bad except to describe it with things that we experience, with things that are in our world. We have to use them. We have to use the examples. There's no special language somewhere where you can explain to, again, I'll argue, somebody who hasn't experienced a feeling. You're not going to come up with any words to explain the feeling. He has to have a reference. He has to have something, some kernel of it, some taste of it. If you never had sour, somebody just can't make you understand sour. They just can't with words. And it's not because the reality doesn't exist. It's because you have to have a reference. You have to have some sort of common experience, some sort of common measuring stick. Or even, you can even use fingers or toes or something to say it's 5 fingers long, or it's this, people they used hands, to measure how tall things were. That's what you have to have it. So there has to be, what's the right word for that? I know there's no right word for that, but there has to be a standard. It's always going to exist. Something has to be it. And there's no standard for a description of feelings except for headache or nausea. Or I could just give an example of a feeling, a sensation, and say, yeah, you've had that, I've had that. The thing I'm talking about is 5 times worse than that, or 10 times better than that, or whatever. But you have to have some kind of reference. And yes, we all experience things differently. We all have different sensitivities. So our what's 3 inches long for me might be 5 inches long for you, but that part doesn't really matter. We know in the big picture that we have a lot of common understandings of that. And some people might think it's worse to get killed by getting hit by a car than drowning, because of certain sensitivities they might have to certain kinds of thoughts, visualizations. Like they don't like the idea of physical damage, maybe. So they like drowning because it doesn't do a lot of physical damage. Something like that. So we definitely can spin the measurements differently from our individual perspective. But the common idea that we know what's on the bad side and we know what's on the good side, there's no disagreement about that. And it's just silly to say, oh, that's in one of those, argument from majority. No, that's sometimes the majority is right, and it's evidence of rightness when it's consensus, when it's not just a 60% majority, but it's a 99% majority. It starts to mean something as a reliable statement. Yes, you can occasionally fool all of the people, right? But it's usually some of the people, some of the time, not all of the people, all of the time. So, in this part of the Hoffa Day's nonsense, he, it just gets almost, it's almost too silly. And you're just saying, how can he can't have analyzed what he's saying at all. Or he wouldn't have said this, because it's just stupid.
In a number shape, and the vision system looked at the number shape, and it had in your brain was a scale mark.
So he's talking about, so your brain, like when you had a pain, it came in the shape of a number, with a minus sign on it. And the truth is that that's how they come, pretty much, right? I mean, you certainly know what's worse than what. You certainly can real easily almost rate your best day to your worst day. You can certainly, within some margin of error, it's really quite easy to sit there and say what's better than what and what's worse than what. Really easy.
Yeah, and it literally looked up the number and said, this is bad. Yeah. If that was physically the case.
Yeah, that's exactly physically the case. That's exactly how I experience it. A pinprick is, oh, yeah, okay. All right. And a nail in my eye. Oh, fuck yeah. Big difference. And it says it in the sensation. The sensation itself says it. It says, I'm a big bad, or it says, I'm just a little bad. It says it in the sensation itself. That's the truth. It says it right to me. Loud and fucking goddamn clear. I mean, right now I have a little bit of a back misery. It's a little bit of a back misery. Not a big back misery. So yeah, it pops into my consciousness now and then. Says, oh, little back misery, little back misery. That's all. It's in its very nature that it's not a big giant big deal. It's not a big giant bad. Now, if my back was worse, then it would be a bad. And it would be saying bad because it would be distracting me and I couldn't even make the video and blah, 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 blah. Duh. I mean, you sit here in this mocking tone. I'm like, oh, isn't that just... And you're the one being a silly asshole, saying stupid goddamn shit that doesn't have anything to do with my experience anyway. So unless you're claiming your consciousness works very differently than mine, what are you thinking? You really can't tell the difference? Between having somebody flick their finger at your head and having one of your teeth extracted? You can't figure out that one's a -9 and one's maybe a -1? You can't?
Then there might be an argument for it being intrinsically numbered kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's exactly how I experience it. That's exactly how I've experienced my entire fucking goddamn life. From every minute I've been on this planet, that's exactly how I've experienced sensations. Sometimes you just scrape your knee or you scrape your knuckle, and then sometimes you rip a big gash in it and it's bleeding and it's a mess. Yeah, there's little harms, there's big harms. There's little bad, there's big bad. That's right. More negative number. Less, I'd have to pile up lots of good stuff, lots of cupcakes to make it a good deal for me to have that number -5 thing. If I'm going to have a -5 misery, yeah, you're going to have to pile up a lot of fucking cupcakes.
And maybe, by extension, intrinsically bad.
Well, thank you for making my argument for me, because that's exactly how I experience my life. The value comes labeled, clearly labeled by the sensation. I can't fucking miss the difference between the orgasm and the, I don't know, septic anal wart. As a metaphor, I haven't actually had one, but...
Well, the whole numbering business itself really is an abstraction.
No, it's a coherent, unavoidable fact of the experience. You really can't avoid noticing the difference between the very good, the nothing, and the very bad. It's really obvious. Really.
Exactly. Well, so I don't think that would work out in actual fact.
Well, I think you're an idiot. I mean, I think you just wasted my time having to sit there and make this with this fucking superior mocking tone to be saying something so fucking stupid, where you just made my argument for me. It is a fact. Okay? The sensations have their qualitative value built right into them. You can't get more core to the thing itself. It is what a sensation is. Okay, is this. This is what makes it something, is the fact that it has this good or bad, and that it can have extremes in any one of those directions.
But the point is these, just because in your...
But I would certainly argue that the extremes in one direction are kind of limited. I mean, it seems like pain is the cavern where you don't want to even test how bad that can get. Because every time I thought I knew pain, you know, something new showed up, and I said, oh fuck, I don't even know what pain is before. I had no idea until that fucking happened, and all of a sudden I have a new appreciation for just how bad can be. Where the good, it does kind of brick wall a little bit. Good is, you know, yeah, 15 minutes here, a half hour there. You know, very nice. I'm not saying this sitting on a park bench on a nice ocean cliff watching the sunset with a nice sea breeze. I'm not saying that ain't a good thing. It's damn good. But it runs out. You can't bottle it. And it's just too little for way too much grief.
Mind's eye. It seems such a wonderful analogy. The fact that there is as abstracted, again, don't get me wrong here, in one's mind's eye as an abstraction, one can order a preferential states.
Well, it's not even preferential states. Like I said, you could just tell the difference. The sensations are in and of themselves. You're just not going to make pain fun. And you're not going to make fucking all kinds of... I mean, you can just go down the list of all the kinds of miseries you can feel. The torments and the agonies and the, you know, the anxieties and all that kind of stuff. And they're not good. They're bad.
And, I don't know how you want to describe it, but there is an ordering of betterness in the abstraction.
Yeah, well, betterness. You know, again, this is just a prejudiced language. I've never lived my life with this idea that it's just good or better. Yeah, no, sorry. No sale.
Yeah. I would say that the loose way is to say it's preference or wanting to be in these different states.
Yeah, well, whatever. The whole wanting thing is just the needing thing. And you need because the deprivations are created physiologically, biologically. We're made to be unsatisfied. We're made to need feeding. We need to be fed entertainment-wise, adventure-wise. We need a narrative to live by where we're winning. We need to think we're winning. People really need to do that. They need to think they're winning. They're getting there. They're moving forward. And if they don't think so, then they get one of those depression things, and it's really nasty shit. But that's all we're chasing. We're just chasing a satisfaction that's been stolen from us by the biological mechanism.
And wanting to travel along the scale this way and that way. And this is the true meaning that bad applies to, and it applies to persons. And though Trick and Inlendham objects there's nothing to do with wanting or preference, blah blah blah, it's just...
Well, those are just the symptoms. Again, you will, if you don't satisfy them, you will have the deprivation, which is the negative sensation. If you gain or move towards gain, all right, you'll get the positive reward. It's a carrot and a whip system, and if you don't think that's how the biology is working, then you're just plain stupid. Sensations exist to create a system, okay, of reward and punishment. That's why they exist.
It just ends up as meaningless statements, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, your opinion is shit. In my opinion, that's just an ignorant, stupid, vacuous pile of shit to sit there and say you can't tell the difference. You can. You're just fucking playing word games. You have felt the sensation and you say you can't figure out what it is. It's subject to misinterpretation. I stick an axe in your fucking head. It's going to be subject to misinterpretation.
Because there's nothing, there's no intrinsic physical quality to the neuronal.
Well, clearly there is. Clearly there's a distinct arrangement that creates the sensations that you might have when you're having chemotherapy and you taste metal and nausea and the whole. There's a unique configuration that identifies that sensation, that manifests it. Fuck you.
Structural event that can be held to be the intrinsic badness.
Again, if you're saying the intrinsic badness has to be a physical property, I'm saying, well, the physical property is the arrangement of the brain's configuration. But that doesn't really explain consciousness. I don't think consciousness can be explained as a material event beyond the fact that it is this arrangement event. It is an illusion created in a brain, but again, it's one hell of illusion. It's like the illusion of time is one hell of an illusion. You have to call it a real thing just because it's so real in terms of it's a consequence. It's a consequence of certain configurations of matter that sensation is realized, consciousness is realized. It's realized in a non-space, a non-material space, but it is realized in the sense that it happens. It doesn't not happen.
I think that's it.
Oh, I guess you're just going to...
So I would ask Trick to pick the closest applicable definition of bad out of the dictionary.
Yeah, it's going to say something like a negative event or something. It's going to use another negative word, another word to denote a deficient circumstance, an inefficient circumstance, a destructive circumstance, um, something perceived to be worth maintaining is destroyed, that kind of thing. There's destroy. There's going to be those kinds of words, but there won't be any other way to do it. There won't be any other way to conceptually grab the concept, because the concept is fundamentally related to something that can't be compared to anything else, which is conscious sensation. You'd have the same problem doing this with good. So, I mean, it's just, the words are always going to have to be tied to a description of some event that happens to conscious organisms, because that's the source of it. That's the source of this notion of significance or value. It just is.
Give me another example of a so-called intrinsic property that isn't.
Why should he have to? Why shouldn't he just say, I've had conscious experiences. I, in having those experiences, cannot miss. I can't confuse it. I can't mistake it. I can't misunderstand it. The sensations have the quality built into them. When you've had the sensation, you'll see the bad. It'll be obvious. And if you have some other kind of sensation, you'll see the good. It'll be obvious. And we don't need to mess with the stuff, floating in the middle somewhere.
Based on a physical system. No, I understand. You can't.
A physical system. Again, this obligation for somebody, before we can establish the existence of bad, I have to give you a diagram of neural network, a 100 billion strong neural network. And so until I can blueprint exactly the configurations that are responsible for this illusion of consciousness, somehow you're going to just deny the consciousness's existence? I mean, isn't that a colossal waste of my goddamn time? I mean, why should I suffer that? We can't do any philosophizing, until we blueprint this thing called consciousness, but somehow we can't be sure it exists. Fuck you.
You can have intrinsic properties, actually. I retract that. You can have intrinsic properties of abstract things, but they're also abstract. But you can't have abstract intrinsic properties of real things.
Well, again, the word real doesn't really mean anything if you're going to sit there and say consciousness doesn't exist. That would be stupid. To say it's not a real thing would be stupid. To say sensations aren't real things would be stupid. So, fuck you, you're stupid.
For example, it's an intrinsic property of a number that it be have a prime factorization, for example. So you can't mix and match. That would be the way to say it. You can't say an abstract idea. It's an intrinsic property of number that there is a cup, number one, that the beer.
Yeah, whatever. Well, it's a stupid comparison. Before we were comparing sensations to cups, and say you can't say a sensation is a feeling, or you can't say a feeling is a. I mean, you're doing this circular thing. The point is what is being said is that the capacity to feel has the property of these different kinds of feelings, and that the feelings themselves have intrinsic property as negative or positive. And it is intrinsic. It is a description of the property of the sensation. The sensation, as described, has this quality that is negative. And it's fundamental and intrinsic to the sensation itself.
Anything physical about number one.
And it's exactly how the biology and all these other organisms works. It's what neurology does.
You could get abstract entities have abstract properties. Physical entities have physical properties.
Yeah, well, again, it's just no point. You want to play that game, then consciousness doesn't exist until you can figure out how the physical manifests the illusion of sensation. But my argument to you is it would be silly of me to sit there and wait for that, to acknowledge the fact that it might as well be real, because it's experienced real. So I just, if I gotta waste my time having arguments with assholes who are going to negate the existence of consciousness, I mean, what the fuck? You can't understand how it's a waste of my time? You ought to get some nose on itch powder. It's itching your nose.
Certainly intrinsic senses.
Whatever. Anyway, so I don't think I got fatigued. Yeah, I don't think there's not much to Anaconda VOD's video to play. I haven't got through. I'm only halfway through his other one, so maybe I'll finish that, and Half of the Day has a part 2 where I'll probably just make a bigger mess. So maybe I'll make another video after that, but it's just word games to negate what human beings really have no excuse for not agreeing upon, which is that we are trapped in a physiological system that has got us by the balls. There's a whip. It's there. It's real. And how we construct our society will affect how many brains are whipped. Just will. That's ethics. Alright. Till next time.